Welcome back to the Unbroken Athletic Podcast. This is episode 7, and in this episode, we discuss the topic of motivation. Is it fact or garbage? Join us as we discuss this topic with Coach Jeremy, Coach Vince, and Coach Jana.
Hey guys, welcome back to Unbroken Athletic Podcast. We are on week 7, or episode 7. Today we are talking about motivation and its mythicalness. So, for the first... So, what do you guys think? A 20-minute AMRAP? Are we going to go over 30 minutes?
I was trying to think of something witty. Just couldn't come up with it in time. With mythical.
So let's do 20 minutes, the first half, talking just general conversation about motivation. And then the last half, let's talk about how we motivate ourselves. Okay? Sound good? In 3, 2, 1, go. All right. So who wants to go first?
We're just going to sit here until someone speaks.
I'm Buddy the Elf. That's me.
You're Buddy the Elf?
So people call me that sometimes.
You're the magic?
Yeah.
To the conversation.
Right.
Just go ahead and run it.
Okay, so I'll drop the hammer real quick. Motivation is garbage. There, I said it. And you said don't say garbage, you said myth. But what I feel like is that motivation is
it's not
in a world...
Not necessarily garbage. It makes for good memes.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say in a world of Instagram memes, and if you follow me on Instagram, you know I post tons of motivational garbage. However, I want to talk about the difference between posting a meme and actually living your life by principles and not your feelings. So motivation to me is like a feeling. Like it's like, oh, I feel motivated, so I'm going to do something. And the problem with that thinking is that in order to be great, to do things, to change yourself, to grow, you can't rely on your feelings because you'll never, ever, ever, ever feel like doing the things you need to do in order to be successful. Whether that's in the gym, whether that's meal prepping, whether that's, in your marriage. And
it doesn't even have to be successful, just doing.
Changing,
life.
Right? And so when people think of motivation, we're talking about changing our direction or becoming more. You never feel like doing those things. And to me, I always thought, when I'm motivated, then I'll do this. But the problem with that is that you never feel motivated. And especially when it comes to changing yourself or changing your circumstances or becoming more than you currently are, you have to do things that are, number one, scary. Number two, they're very uncertain. And our brains are wired to avoid those situations at all costs. It's kind of like that fight or flight situation. So when we put ourselves in a situation where we're trying to change and grow, then our brain is automatically coming up with reasons, and there's so much science behind this. It's kind of fascinating, actually. And then when you think about people that are actually successful or why it's so hard to change yourself, like if you look at the science behind it, and I'll give you guys a book if you're interested in reading about the science stuff behind it. Her name is Mel Robbins. She wrote a book called The 5-Second Rule, but she has TED Talks if you don't want to read the whole book. And it's just so fascinating that our brains will actually prevent us. It's like when we talk about brain tricks and things like that, it's actually true that once we start down that path, our brain is coming up with ways to sabotage us. And so I think the second half of this will be a little bit better to talk about what we do to quote unquote keep ourselves motivated. So you guys want to add to that? What do you think about motivation?
So motivation to me, I think it's, I kind of go on two different paths with this. So motivation to me, if you're solely relying on motivation to get you through life, then yes, it's a myth. However, I do believe in, and I personally watch motivational videos on YouTube and read motivational quotes and post motivational quotes and all that. So I think that there's a time and a place for it, and I think sometimes certain, whether it's a video or a quote or something that hits you, it can motivate you to take action. But I also do believe that you can't always be motivated. Like you can't always be sitting there watching a video or reading quotes constantly and progressing your life forward. You have to set those, as you put them, principles, your core values, things like that, in place in order to keep going. And then motivation is that little like push here and there that can help you out. So yeah, that's kind of my take on motivation.
Yeah.
Jeremy?
It's good.
All sunshines.
All sunshine and rainbows. Motivation makes you feel all nice and warm and fuzzy inside for about 2 minutes, and then as soon as you're done with that motivation, you're just back to real life. So like motivation is good for like one-liners. That's what I like. Like when people are all like, oh man, my life is so crappy, and I'm like, there's always a silver lining, right? You know. But I think as far as motivation goes, I mean, the true test of motivation, and I wrote that on the whiteboard downstairs, is the what was it?
Ability to take action.
Yeah, I wrote it on a whim. I heard it on a podcast, and I wrote it, and it was the ability, the ultimate. Basically, what it means is the ultimate test of anybody's ability to do anything is their actions, and that's essentially the key part of motivation that can't do it for you. So if you're looking for videos or memes or something to motivate your butt to get up, or motivate your butt to be successful, or motivate your butt to make that one extra phone call, to make that sale, to call that person, to write that email, you're not going to find it, because motivation will do everything as far as make you feel nice and warm and fuzzy and safe and comfortable. I mean, complacency right there, last episode, that is the key component of complacency. Is, you know, I'm reading all these motivational books and I'm getting all these motivational meetings and messages and stuff, but you're complacent in that you're not doing anything. You're not applying that motivational effort because you are not acting on it. And I believe action is the key component to most people being unsuccessful or successful. And not even just in the fitness world, but it's in the business world too. It's like, you know, I could be motivated to go do a 315-pound deadlift. I'm really motivated. I really want it. I think that's a really great goal or whatever. But like, you load 315 on a bar, and you're going to be really unmotivated if you have not taken the action to build up the strength to do a 315-pound deadlift. And so, like, a lot of people think that if I just read all these motivational quotes, that I can bypass all the hard crap and I can go straight to being successful. It doesn't work that way. I mean, not in my experience anyway. I don't know. You guys?
No.
Yeah?
No.
I haven't found that.
Yeah. You ready to go 365 back squats for triples? Let's go, man. Let's go do it. Right?
I don't even know.
I'm motivated.
I don't know if I'm
You motivated?
No.
I'm motivated. But like, you know, that's what I'm saying. Is like that key component of action. Like if you're not doing the things that are putting you in a place, it doesn't matter how much motivational speaking or how many motivational YouTube TED Talks you watch or how many motivational memes you read and repost and whatever. Like if you're not taking those action steps to doing those things, it's not going to work. I mean, it's just not going to happen. Like, I think that's the biggest thing that people just miss out on from, I mean, it's so easy to be like, dude, we are motivational podcast people. Aren't we? We're so motivational. Like, great, that's wonderful and awesome and kudos to us and pats on our back, but I don't want to be labeled as a motivational speaker because it doesn't do anything for me. What I want to be labeled as is an action speaker. Like when you listen to something that we say causes an action to happen, that's the type of speaker that I want to be. I want to be that person that's not, hey, you made me very motivated to wake up once the other morning because I didn't hit the snooze alarm. I woke up at 5 a.m. I listened to one of your podcasts, but I did it once. It's constant, continual action over long periods of time.
There's a name for those.
What?
Habits.
Oh, yes, habits.
I
think
add
I
on
already
to
broke into the next section, but
yeah, I think both of you guys hit on it. So motivation is really just action, and really habits, right? So what was that one quote when we were at Success School? I was like, I don't want you to be all motivated because you just come in here, get motivated, and then you're a whole group of motivated idiots without a plan. What was that like?
That's pretty good. Just a bunch of motivated idiots.
Like you can't just have that feeling of motivation and excitement. You have to have a plan, and then you have to have action. But also you have to rewire your brain. You have to create those habits because it's compounded over time. Like I believe in affirmations. I do those every single morning where I speak out loud to myself. And I believe in, having like a set, like something that you can say, a saying. What are those called? Like a saying that you can say in the instant to like snap yourself out of something.
Like a motto?
Like a motto,
mantra.
yeah. So a mantra. So like when I'm running, I hate running. And when I'm running, I say something like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. You get to run today. You get to, like, I'm just repeating these things over and over again to kind of drown out that, all the doubts and stuff that I'm saying in my head.
That's in Unbeatable Mind.
Yeah, so I believe in that.
Created a chant that he run, like, when he's running, like...
But that's more to override
looking so good, I'd be good in Hollywood or something like that. I forget what his mantra is.
So I do believe in that. I don't think we're talking about that. I think we're specifically talking about, like, looking for motivation outside of yourself. Right? So we can switch now into like what we do, and we'll just go around, talk about like what do we do, because motivation has to people look for it outside of themselves. I think before you do that, I think what we kind of have to have in place to that is kind of like rules that you live by, and that is we've turned now from motivation into kind of like an action plan, and that action plan are things that you as a person, you don't ever want to betray these certain laws for yourself.
Your core values.
Your core values, or I heard them today, they were called infallibles, which are a mix of core values and ethics. But that's kind of going down a different path. But I think if we're solely looking at the motivational piece, I think there's a certain thing that people just... some rules for themselves that they need to come up with that that they will never cross the line. Like ours is we never leave the house without the bed made. It's just one of those things. It's a line that's and that kind of implements into kind of that habit.
Yeah.
Is that what you're...
creating habits. So setting a bed that started our journey with learning how to discipline ourselves. Because you're never going to feel motivated. You might feel motivated after you watch a video for a couple minutes, after you go to a seminar, after you, something, whatever, after you watch a movie. But most of the time, you have to be disciplined. It's not about being motivated. It's about learning how to be disciplined, because your feelings are never going to line up with what you want to do. So we learned how to set our bed, and our mentor said to us, if you can't beat an inanimate object every single morning when you wake up, what are your chances out there in the real world? And we're like, that's the dumbest thing we ever heard. We never set our bed growing up. That was never a rule for us.
It was for me.
Oh, it was not for me.
But I always thought it was stupid. I was like, I'm just going to sleep in it.
Yeah.
So
and
why do I have to make my bed? But my parents didn't explain it like that. I mean, I might have made it a little bit more.
I was trying to explain it to the kids, and I was like, do you want to be a winner? It didn't go the way I planned.
That didn't go well.
However, they went up and they set their bed, because I was trying to explain to them how, creating those habits and what that actually means. So for us, that's where it started. We learned how to set the bed, and now we're, 9 years down the road. I cannot leave my house with that bed being set. It is the weirdest thing ever. When we go to hotels, we set our bed. The people at the...
How weird do you think it is for the maids when they come in and they're like,
Were you already here?
I'm a little weirded out by this.
We tuck in the corners and everything. It's not just like, throw the sheet out.
Only in hotels. I do that just to mess with them. At home, I'm not like so methodical, but like when I get in a hotel room, I'm like, I take a mental picture of how it looked when I walked in.
Oh, gosh.
So then when the maid walks in, they'll be like, where do these people sleep? Like, did they not sleep here or what? And I do it for my own satisfaction that there was a maid out there that walked into the hotel room and went, okay, I'm a little freaked out.
Yeah, we do that.
It's the best.
Pretty awesome. So I think what we learn by setting our bed every single day is that you can retrain yourself on how to do things to a point where it becomes like it's
normal.
We don't even, it's totally normal. We don't talk about it. I don't even think about it anymore. Before I was, when we were creating that habit, it was like a thing you had to think about and
I still have arguments in my head with the bed.
I don't.
And I'm like,
anymore.
You stupid bed. If I don't make this bed, I'm going to think about it all day long. And that's what the conversation that I have with myself. And I'm like, you're not winning today, bed.
You're not winning today. Yeah,
not
and it's
today.
The same thing.
No,
So then over a lifetime, you just create these habits that become who you are. Like your habits become your life. It becomes your legacy. It becomes what you're about. So another one that we added just recently is not hitting the snooze button. I used to love that snooze. Oh yes, 10 more minutes for 5 rounds, But you're setting yourself up to kind of let if you were supposed to get up and you didn't get up and you sat, even if you planned for that snooze, it's still setting up your mind to be in a position where you're like in a weaker state. You know what I mean? Where you just, now the alarm goes off, I jump out of bed. And it might not be a habit, where it's fully that strong yet, but it will be, because I will not let myself slip up on that. Now there's some days, the other day it didn't go off and I was all mad and it kind of set my day back. I'm like, now I got to start all over with my habits and blah, blah, blah. But you kind of learn that as you go on. The same thing with meal prepping. That's a habit. The same thing with showing up at the gym. It is a habit. I do not miss more than 3 days. I said that in another podcast. There will be nothing that could keep me out. Even when I had the flu.
That's the biggest thing, though, is like that habit. Yeah, so maybe you don't have 3 days where you go in, but there's a lot of things that you can do outside of the gym that aren't going to necessarily facilitate that endorphin rush or that exercise function.
I should have said workout.
The biggest thing is like a lot of times people get all bogged down by the fact that they have to be in the gym, and that doesn't mean that you can't just come and do a 4-minute Tabata and still have some source or some kind of exercise behavior.
Right.
It does.
Walking.
It just has to fit within that parameter. But the biggest thing for that is the motivation it's the action for that motivation. Okay, and that's the biggest, the crux, the key point of all of this is if you don't have action, I don't care how much motivation you have, it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
So I agree to an extent, and I agree with what you guys are saying about the whole habits part, but I also believe motivation internally, or I like to call it more inspiration than motivation, is your why. It's more, to me, the habits are the action portion, but your motivation, the reason why you do something, is more about your why. And why are you alive? Why do you go to work every single day? Why do you go work out every single day? And it's not just, people say, oh, it's to look good naked, or
carbs.
So I can eat carbs or whatever.
That's a pretty good
it's
motivation.
It's a wonderful motivation, but there's something deeper than just those types of things. And so for instance, for me, my why used to only be my little nephews. My oldest nephew was born right before I got into college. So the spring before I entered college. So at that point, I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna be the best uncle this kid ever had, or this kid could ever have, and I'm gonna show him what it is to be a man. And then my next nephew was born, and it was like, all right, I've got to be even better now because now I have to show both of them. So that was pretty much throughout college, and then now all of a sudden it was like, all right, so I have that internally, plus internally I want to be a source of inspiration, I guess you could say, to other people, to be able to show other people, hey, look at him, he's speaking all of these motivational things, and he's taking that action to put himself in at least a position. He might not achieve what he sets out to do, but he's not going to give up until he at least puts everything that he has into it.
Yeah, but I mean that comes back to the whole, that crux of action. Like you could have inspiration, like you can be inspired to paint, you can be inspired to write a book, you can be inspired to do all these things, but until you put the pen to the paper, until you put the paintbrush to that pad, whatever, like that action step has to happen. And so yeah, you have the inspiration, but you're acting on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest thing, that's the missing loophole that most people fall short of, is just that stepping into that action. Like there is nobody or anything that is going to make you do anything you don't want to do.
Right.
The penalty might be death, but nobody's going to make you do anything. Like that is the choice that you have to make. And then, we could do a whole podcast on choices and how that affects. Doing nothing is still a choice. It's not, nobody forced you to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You chose not to act. You chose not to do anything. And so that inspiration is lying dormant. And I don't believe that God gave us inspiration just so that we can sit on it and be like, that's a great idea.
Right.
But, I'm probably going to fail. I'm probably going to look stupid. I'm probably going to look dumb. Guess what? We've all looked stupid. We've all looked dumb. We've all done dumb things. We've all done those things. The problem is the people that are super successful keep doing those dumb things until they get it right. And that's where that motivation came from. It wasn't because they sat on their couch and just felt sorry for themselves. They looked at themselves in the mirror and they said, you know what? I'm going to act, and this is my motivation. And then they've spilled out that motivation to the masses. So hopefully that one person is going to act on that motivation.
Yeah.
Until that motivation is acted upon, it means absolutely nothing but making you feel nice and warm inside. And you get the chills and you're like, I'm going to change the world.
And
after I watched this last season on Netflix, bro.
And you know what's really funny, because we've been on the journey for a while now, but what's really funny is that like doing the things that are required to be successful never feel warm and fuzzy.
No.
Like they never once have I done something like, public speaking, that's like number one fear for most people. It's like above death for most people. I saw it on a survey the other day. So for me, I've given speeches with a microphone in front of 500 to 1,000 people, crowds. And it was absolutely the worst, terrifying, crazy thing I've ever done in my life. And now it's not anymore. I've been doing it for a long time. But I still never feel warm and fuzzy going up there. Like, this is so motivating. I'm so glad. Afterward, yes. So I would say the motivation comes from doing the things. The more you do the thing, the more motivation you have to keep going. And so I would say we could just end on closing thoughts. But what I would
say, like, for your closing thoughts is one piece of advice, because we never really got to it because I threw everybody off topic as always. Yes. Per norm. Per usual. But what I want, then we can do this as a closing statement as far as like one thing that we do to keep ourselves motivated.
Yeah, that's good.
We'll start with you,
okay, just
because I cut you off again.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So the one thing that I do that keeps me motivated in anything, is it's a CrossFit thing. 3, 2, 1, go. And that's kind of Mel Robbins, her book, 5-second rule, is the instant you feel that hesitation and that pullback, your brain is going to put a big gap in between you doing and you wanting to do. And it's going to get bigger and bigger the longer you let that time lapse. You're going to create all these weird situations in your mind. You're going to create all these fake fears. You're going to do all these things. And so the minute I feel hesitation, like, oh, I'm tired. I don't need to go to the gym. I didn't sleep well. I'm like, instantly get up and go. Doing live videos on Facebook. I do a lot of them. They're terrifying still. Talking in front of people. Volunteering to speak. Because a lot of what I do, I volunteer to speak. So the minute I feel that hesitation rising up, like, oh, I should do that. And then it starts. I'm like 3, 2, 1, go. Like hit the button, do the things, drop $2,500 on a coach, do the things I need to do to be great, even though it's terrifying. 3, 2, 1, go. Just do, and then all that stuff disappears, and you're like, wow, I was just making that all up.
Yeah,
that's mine.
So for me, it's basically just it's hard for me because, again, to me, motivation is a little bit different than what you guys are talking about. So for me, it's just always thinking about my parents and my family. And, like hey, in a sense, it is the same as what you guys were talking about because I saw my dad and my mom working constantly, right, to provide for us and everything. Their action, what they did for me, I want to be able to do for my children, and I want to give back to them as well. So I guess in a sense, their actions and seeing what they were able to go through, that just pushes me every single day.
Mine is what was in our last podcast of complacency versus greatness. Is I don't want on my tombstone, here lies Jeremy Tokarski. He was mediocre. Just feels like a loose handshake. You ever get one of those? Like a dead fish in your hand. That's what it feels like to me. Captain, like, loose hand.
I don't want to touch it.
It's like sticking your hand in a bucket of mud. All right. We went over again.
As usual.
We're going to get this right.
One day we're just going to be like, stop timing us. Just talk until we're done talking. All right, guys. We will see you next week. Episode 8.
Yeah.
We have no idea what we're going to talk about. And when are we launching the online bit?
17th.
Okay, good. We're not going to give a
September.
lot of details for it. Just know that it is going to be an online program for the masses, something for everybody, CrossFitters, non-CrossFitters, moms, dads, weightlifters, anybody that's looking for something extra. Or traveling, or even if you are already CrossFitting and you're looking for more, right?
Yeah.
So heads up on that, and we will let you guys go, and
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
peace.